Welcome back to How I Made My Millions. You know, everyone here at the Fancy Food Show is trying in one way or another to become a game changer. These next two Seattle brothers thought that something was missing from the coffee shop scene, and they decided to do something about it. Something called donuts. And now, of course, they're rolling in the dough. Whether it's their music or construction, brothers Mark and Michael Klebeck share a passion for nostalgia and kitsch. Their taste surfaced while renovating their mother's home in 1991. It was so much fun, they teamed up with friends in their spare time to remodel the coffee shops where they work.
We're really trying to kind of evoke a feeling of years gone by.
I would say definitely post-World War II, so between 1946 and 1949.
It's something that really resonates with our patronage. They come back into the stores and it's like a little trip down memory lane.
By 2001, they were looking to open their own coffee shop. A rusty sign they'd taken from a Chinese restaurant called Top Spot years earlier was a fit, but the S fell off on the way to the repair shop.
And that's what we were left with. So we're driving along I-5.
We were in the right-hand lane, so it wasn't as dangerous as it sounded.
This S, which was in the center of the sign, this beautiful Top Spot sign, blows off on the freeway and it's completely gone. And at the time I was so mad. But
I was so saddened when I saw it fall off.
But then we're left with Top Pot, and I thought, well, we could put a percolator in the center of the sign and make it revolve, and that's how we got started.
It was serendipitous compared to the careful research behind the idea of selling donuts.
So on Monday mornings, Michael and his wife would open up the cafe, and they couldn't get certain pastries from a vendor, so they'd go out and buy donuts from this one retailer around town, throw them in the case, and they were the first things that would fly off the shelves. And so it kind of sparked this idea.
They thought the humble donut done right could set them apart in the Seattle coffee shop scene. At the time, everybody was talking about fancier craft pastries and treating coffee like fine wine. The Klebecks were building interiors that harkened back to simpler times. Donuts seemed like a match.
When we saw the donuts that were considered a lowbrow alternate flying off the shelves, we thought, wow, it just seemed the perfect fit.
They even found classic donut making equipment, but there was one big problem with the donut idea.
We didn't know how to make donuts.
So they opened in 2002 without donuts, tinkering with a 1920s recipe for another month.
Funniest thing, we had the Top Pot hand-forged donuts sign out front, and people would come in and say, where are the donuts? And they're like, we're still trying to figure it out.
When their little neighborhood coffee shop began attracting customers from all over the area, it looked like they might be on to something.
I think when the soccer moms finally showed up, these moms coming out saying, you know, I've heard about your donuts. And we were like, well, we haven't even made a donut yet.
So at that time, we decided to double the price at that point.
They went from 69 cents, I think, to
$1.89.
$1.89, like, overnight.
Staying with the throwback theme, they pushed cake donuts. Their old fashions became a staple.
It's the one that has the cracked sort of top to it. And I always say that travels well because you can throw it across the room and it still looks the same.
We don't do that.
Their old-school, hand-forged donuts appealed to craft pastry connoisseurs and kids alike. The pink feather boa and apple fritters got lots of attention, but their sweet memories are tinged with reminders of the hands-on, day-to-day struggles of nurturing a new business.
So back in the day, I mean, we were calling my mom, asking her if we could borrow her Home Depot card to go out and buy plywood to build cabinets, and we were stressed. I mean, we didn't have the resources financially or with the staffing. So Michael and I were not only building out the stores, but we were running another shop. We were, doing all the payroll, everything. And at the time, it got to a point where we just felt we were so in deep with this project that we didn't have a choice but to keep going forward and not turn back.
Finding a bank to loan them more money was no easy trick either. But within a year, it happened. And they got busy converting a former oil burner supply house downtown into their new flagship location, with its very own neon sign. It opened in 2003. The two Top Pots made about 400 dozen donuts a day. Annual revenue, about $300,000. Then Starbucks founder Howard Schultz blew the lid off of Top Pot.
It's about 3 weeks after we opened the flagship store. We had Howard Schultz from Starbucks had come in and ordered a dozen donuts, looked around, and then sat down with one of our managers and said, you know, what would you think about having your donuts in our cafes?
We were just really excited that he acknowledged us.
It wasn't until January 2005 that we actually launched in 269 stores of theirs in Western Washington. And then over the course of 6 years grew it to 14,000 locations that we supplied.
Starbucks kept on advancing their orders every day. They're like, okay, we need double the amount. And Mark's like going, say no, say no. And I was like, sure, we'll do it. We went from probably, I would say from about 400 dozen to 4,000 dozen, like within a matter of a few months. And that was per day.
Locally, they were all over town, even the football stadium. Their decadent throwback donuts even found their way onto President Obama's breakfast menu.
He picked the pumpkin old fashioned, and after he had that and after word got out, we couldn't even keep the pumpkin old fashions in stock. They were just gone.
Revenues crested around $30 million, but their Starbucks deal ended in 2011. Turns out they were spread too thin, supplying too many locations with small quantities of donuts. Hoping to grow their margins, they hoped to sell larger quantities in fewer locations. So they signed on with West Coast supermarket chains under the Kroger umbrella. What's more, the supermarkets are selling their coffee too, which never would have happened, of course, at Starbucks. New money is leading to expansion in late 2012. Seattle is home to a dozen Top Pot cafes, and in 2013, their first major market franchises will open in New York City. There's even a donut cookbook and their idea of a splurge, new businesses. How about Top Pot ice cream with familiar flavors like apple fritter, maple bar, mixed with donut pieces, of course.
We're going to recreate this child's globe of the world.
And Michael, with a little help from his friends, has opened 2 bars.
This is the distillery. So we have this copper pot from Scotland.
Selling handcrafted gin. Everything the Klebecks do is about detail and a little luck.
If we had tried to plan it that way, it wouldn't have happened. And I don't want to follow a recipe. I always loved seeing the true essence of brand building, the grassroots, people coming, celebrating it, telling their friends and family about it. And that's how you have something that's lasting, you know? So 100 years from now, it's still special.
As the story about the Top Pot sign shows, sometimes losing your S isn't such a bad thing.